It was incredibly cold down here. Way colder than I expected. I don't know what I was expecting though, being inside a giant glacier. I was thankful for the thick, long coat I was wearing. "Hey Evan, nice to see you again. You ready for this one?" Lucy said with a grin. "Hey Lucy," I replied. "Yeah, I'm mostly curious to see it. I heard this one was special compared to the other ones." I replied with a smile. It was out of politeness. The situation hardly called for any form of enjoyment. Lucy didn't agree though, but she always had a screw loose, I guess. "Well yeah, you can say that again." She had a sparkle in her eyes. "Follow me, let me show you." Her long coat waved in the breeze as she walked to the other side of the tent. She held open the flap of the tent for me to pass through and sit with a smile in her eyes. "Feast your eyes." When I walked through, the oppressive air instantly hit me. It felt like gravity was much stronger here, and something in this area was actively pushing me away, telling me I don't belong here. When I looked up, I saw something completely different than what I was expecting. It was insanity. Pure insanity. Jack was right. Any description would not do this thing justice. You could tell it was similar to the other doors. But the feel you got from this was on a whole different level. It was alive. The disgusting red color of the other ones were replaced by a thick black, charred flesh-like color. The vague, screaming faces were now not vague at all. They were moving around, swirling across the structure, almost like trying to claw themselves out of the material itself. The door was looming above me. It had to be at least 10 meters tall. I realized I wasn't breathing when I heard Lucy behind me. "Crazy, isn't it?" I took a deep breath and turned to look at her. She was smiling from ear to ear, like this monstrosity was her baby. I knew it was a lost cause, arguing with her. "Yeah, it's certainly something. I hope no one has touched it yet." "Hell no," she laughed. "We only analyzed the outside and the frame. No one is stupid enough to touch it, let alone open it and walk through. Not after what happened to the others." She gave me a quick wink and an up and down look. "Except for you, of course." I was feeling sick to my stomach. So far, I was the only one that was able to go through one of these things and come back out alive. The scientists told me that the only logical thing, like there was any logic involved with these things, was my lack of emotion and subsequent lack of fear. Apparently, the others that went through are still comatose and their amygdala is in overdrive. They put them on all kinds of medication to try to help them, but nothing works. They say that it seems like they're stuck in their own heads, constantly in terror. The official diagnosis is fear-induced coma, or catatonic state. I had never been scared before, not for any of the other doors either. Although, I was getting the feeling that this knot in my stomach was not just my breakfast not agreeing with me. They were staring at me. The hollow eye sockets and distorted faces were following my every movement. The other doors we had found so far were broken. On average, about 70% of them was missing, and there was no vibe coming off them, besides the fact that they were just creepy as hell. The only thing that happened around those is when you'd walk through them. I stopped a few steps in front of it. The closer I got, the more it felt like the air itself was holding its breath. I looked up towards the top. It looked like it was bending over me. Impossible, of course. It's still just a structure. "Can you open it for me?" Lucy said behind me. I looked back at her. I noticed a lot of the other scientists were watching us from a distance, frantically making notes and observations. As usual, there was a large camera standing there as well, from which main camp was able to watch what was happening. Lucy was holding a small camcorder, eagerly waiting for me to touch the door. "Yeah, give me a second," I replied. I looked back, measured it up and down with my eyes, and then closed them. I took a deep breath and thought to myself, I've got a feeling this is going to be a very bad day. I opened my eyes, breathed out aggressively, and reached my right arm out towards the door. I started pushing, trying to open it. The material actually felt like flesh. It was a disgusting feeling. I kept pushing. It gave way easily, like it was no longer trying to push me away, but rather to invite me in. Suddenly, I jumped back. Something else was different to the other doors. Lucy saw it too. "Oh my god, what is that?" I heard her say. In the door frame where the door was, there now was a very thin, flimsy foil stretching from top to bottom. It was slowly dancing in the wind, even though there wasn't any down here. I would have said it looked kind of pretty if it wasn't for the disgusting color of brown yellow mucus. There was another thing that was strange. With the other doors, it actually slow closed back up again. But this time, it seemed like it actually disappeared. Like it dissolved into the mucus. There was only a frame and the foil of mucus now. I turned to look at Lucy. I had never seen her eyes get as big as they were now. "That's new," she said. "It almost looks like it actually goes somewhere, don't you think?" I was looking at her, and then towards the floor. I really don't want to go in there, I thought. Everything inside of me was saying, bad idea. I looked back up at Lucy's face and opened my mouth to say something. But something stopped me. Her eyes got even bigger, but her smile was turned upside down. Evan?" she said to me in a trembling voice. I felt my stomach falling into my shoes. "What?" I said while turning around. My eyes widened. The mucus was touching my coat. I wasn't standing that close, was I? No, I'm not. I'm still several feet from the door. So why? And then I saw it. The mucus was reaching out. It was grabbing me. As a reflex, I tried to step away, but I couldn't move. I was stuck. I looked back at Lucy. I felt the blood draining from my face. "Call was all I could mutter. Before I knew it, I felt something suddenly pulling at my back with an incredible amount of force. I went flying through the air. I heard Lucy yelling. It only took a second for it to pick me off the ground and pull me through the door. There was only one thought going through my head right then and there. Oh fuck. I hear crying behind me, coming from the bedroom. I sighed and looked in front of me. A man with a stubble and long brown hair draped over his ears is looking at me in the mirror. His gray eyes look lifeless. "I just don't understand. We've been together for 3 years. Was any of it even real for you?" Rose was sobbing in the bedroom. Every relationship I've had so far had come to this point. At the start, they always tend to say things like, "Oh, no worries. I know you're a bit different. I can handle it." They always seem to think they can fix me. Like there was anything to fix. I do understand. Emotion is a vital thing in a relationship. It's something everyone craves. Even me. I just can't give it back. I looked to my right, outside the bathroom window. It was an early August day. It was very bright outside, with lots of people walking around in as little clothing as possible. So why was this bathroom so damn cold? I looked back at myself in the mirror, took a deep breath, and turned around to walk back to the bedroom. I knew this was the last night she was going to be here. A sharp pain in my shoulder made me stop in the doorway. I inhaled sharply through my teeth. Damn, that hurts. What is that? I looked at my shoulder. It was bruised and bleeding. How did that happen? I opened my mouth to ask for Rose to help me. But as I turned towards the bed, she was gone. In fact, all the furniture looked different, like it aged 100 years in a blink of an eye. I grabbed my shoulder and winced from the pain. What the hell is going on? The bright day outside was replaced by darkness. Something outside was moving. I tried to walk towards the window to see, but something stopped me. The windows were freezing, and fast. The frost sped up, clawing its way inside, freezing more and more of the room. I don't know what's happening, but I need to get out of here. As I turned to run to the door, I bumped into something. Something big, nasty and gray. It felt like I ran into a wall made of something rotting. I wiped my face, but there was nothing on there. I slowly looked up to see what I hit. It was hard to see at first in the darkness, until my eyes started adjusting. It was big, very big. It must have been about 2.5 meters tall. And it wasn't a wall. It was a person, or at least humanoid. The thing was towering above me, breathing raggedly and staring at me. It was built like a very muscular person, except his flesh looked like it could fall off any second. Its head was bald and misshapen, its eye sockets empty. I couldn't do anything. All I could do was stare back. It slowly moved its head closer to me, twitching, until my nose was almost touching the space where his was supposed to be. Oh God, the stench. Out of nowhere, it started roaring at me, an extremely loud, bellowing roar right in my face. Mucus was flinging out of his mouth, hitting my face. It was deafening, disgusting. Ah! I screamed as I woke up. Sitting upright in an instant, my heartbeat beating like it had never before. I looked around me. Where the hell am I? And what was up with that fucked up dream? My shoulder reminded me of its wound. I winced again, grabbing it. I was lying on the floor, close to a wall. I looked up. Frozen grey walls were towering above me, going up for what looked like forever. The walls were draped with ragged, discolored flags. They were blowing in the harsh wind that was moving through the structure. Very high up, hanging from the ceiling, I could make out something moving in the wind. A cage? Did I fall from up there? I looked down to the uncomfortable surface I was laying on. I suddenly forgot about the pain in my arm. Bones everywhere. The floor was littered with them. At least, I was assuming there was a floor under here. I couldn't even tell. As I tried to stand up, the bones were cracking under my shoes. I could feel the cold emanating from the walls. My eyes were starting to adjust to the little amount of light in this place. There was what looked like a passageway to the left. I started stumbling towards it, trying to keep my balance while attempting to ignore the sound of crunching bones beneath my feet. There was a rack sticking out from what looked like a skull, parts of the vertebrae still attached. I grabbed it as I kept walking. This would make do as a bandage. Closer to the passageway, there was a creaking noise. A door? Maybe there is an exit. I finally made it, already completely out of breath. At least, I'm on solid ground now. I leaned against the wall to calm down and to take a look around the corner. I didn't see much, just more stone and some alcoves. No door. I took off my coat and lowered myself to the floor. The pain was trying to tell me to stop moving around, but I needed to take a look at the wound. I examined my shoulder. I got lucky. It doesn't look too bad. I've had a few broken bones before. This didn't feel or look like that. I used the rack to bind the cut so it wouldn't keep bleeding at least. As I was binding the wound, I heard the creaking sound again, much closer this time. It seemed to be coming from around the corner. I looked up to peek, but didn't see anything. Doesn't matter. Wound first. I quickly finished up and put the coat back on. I could tell I wouldn't last too long if I kept it off. It's strange though. What is this place? Did the door bring me here? I peered around the corner again. Still nothing. The other doors gave me only glimpses of otherworldly places. They never actually brought me somewhere. At least, I don't think so. So what the hell is going on? I started walking down the hallway, staying close to the wall. It was big. It looked like it was made for giants. The walls all had intricate shapes and symbols carved in them. Is it decorative or something different? Think, man. Don't get distracted. I'm definitely not dreaming, so it's not that. This is also not like the other doors. Those just gave me glimpses. This is the first door that wasn't broken though. Does that mean it's actually able to transport people? No, that can't be possible. I kept walking. There was what looked like a small alcove to my left. The other doors all lead somewhere else, all strange, horrific places. This is the only one where it's so bloody cold though. The others went to places like an infinite desert or a place with constant icy rain. The one where I saw buildings that were on fire all the time was definitely the most memorable, for a lack of a better word. In every single one of them, I could hear constant screaming. But here, it's dead quiet. Creepily quiet. I kept walking. As I started passing the alcove, I looked at it from the corner of my eye. The creaking sounds again, right in my ear. I jumped away from it and fell to the floor. I was looking at the alcove in disbelief. My body felt frozen. Was that what was making the sound? I couldn't believe my eyes. Until now, I must have been in some sort of denial. But this thing right in front of me was as real as can be. That's a human, or at least, what was left of one. He was hanging from the wall, 2 meters from the floor. His entire body was completely desiccated. His skin looked like it had dried up ages ago. There was nothing left of his facial features. The eye sockets were eerily dark and empty, and there was not a hair left on his head. His jaw was hanging open, and his teeth were all gone. The arms and legs were brutally pinned to the freezing stone wall with huge spikes. It seemed like he was crucified right onto the stone ages ago. I think this person could not have survived this ordeal for more than a day. If the blood loss wouldn't have killed him, the cold sure would have. The wall around the corpse was adorned with all kinds of symbols and markings I had never seen before. To the sides were large bone-white candles flickering, giving the corpse an even more scary look. I squinted my eyes at it as I stood up again. I'm sure that corpse had to have made that sound. There was nothing else inside the alcove that could. My eyes widened as I realized it wasn't dead. It was very superficial, but it was still breathing. When I moved closer, he moved a few millimeters, but it was enough evidence that it was still alive. The creaking sound I heard before was coming from its mouth. Impossible. No one should be able to be breathing in this state. He looked completely exsanguated. Help me. It was conscious? I was completely frozen to the floor. I shook my head to come back to my senses as my mind was racing with all these questions. What is this place? Who is that person? How in hell is he even still alive? But most of all, who put him there? I approached it and reached up to the pin that was in its feet and tried to yank it out. I put my foot against the wall to be able to use more force, but it didn't work. It wasn't budging. Even if my shoulder wasn't wounded, I don't think I could pull this out. The pins were solid iron and as thick as a child's fist. I started backing away from it. I looked at the not-so-much corpse and back to the floor. There was nothing I could do for him. I closed my eyes for a second and proceeded down the hall. I heard him behind me, still making the creaking sound and calling out for help. As I proceeded down the hall, I noticed many more alcoves, and not just on ground level. The tall walls were filled with them. Almost every single one had one of those corpses in it, some more deteriorated than the rest. All of them with large, flickering shadows due to the candles. I came upon a curved staircase disappearing up and around the corner to the left. As I ascended, I noticed some large openings on the inner curve. As I looked out of one, I saw the pit of bones below me, already some distance down. The sound of the flags moving in the wind was almost calming to hear. I continued my travels up the stairs for some time, until I saw the end. Staying close to the wall, I approached the next floor. There were large columns on either side of where the stairs ended. I stopped behind the one in front of me and peered around the corner. The hall was pretty much the same as the other one. Alcoves everywhere, and the walls and floor still had a blue-grayish hue. It wasn't getting any warmer either. In fact, it felt like it was getting colder as I ascended. The shadows coming from the alcoves were dancing everywhere, making it difficult to make out much. I decided to just go for it. No use hanging around here. Maybe if I can get to the top, I can find some way out of there. Or maybe that cage has some answers. It looked like it was important. I carefully moved around the pillar still sticking to the wall. It seemed like, compared to the last floor, there were some large windows here too, although most of them were covered by the large flags. I almost got used to the groans of the corpses around me, so much so that I didn't even notice there was some other sound, until it was almost too late. Compared to the corpses, this almost sounded like a rickety clicking sound that you hear when hitting wood with a small stick. But the sound wasn't what made me stop walking. It was what I smelled. I remembered it clearly. It was the stench from the thing I saw in my dream. Trying not to move a muscle, I scanned the hall again, searching for the source. Across the hall, there it was, slowly walking from the far end opposite of me, looking at the alcoves as if it was searching for something. I jumped into the closest alcove to me, and I hid around the corner on the inside. The corpse was on my right, staring down at me. I could feel the hollow eye sockets burning in my back. I barely heard its cries for help. I was trying to keep an eye on that thing on the other side. It was almost exactly like the one in my dream. Standing about 2.5 meters tall, this muscular, rotting grey monster was slowly walking close to the wall, staring at an alcove some distance ahead of it. At least, I thought it was staring. It was too dark to see whatever was left of its facial features. The clicking sound I heard were its bones. It shouldn't even be able to be standing in this state, let alone moving around. I watched it carefully as it approached an alcove. The corpse in there was one of the worst I'd seen so far. I could barely recognize a human in it, as desiccated and shriveled as it was. Its arms were completely stretched out to an abnormal length from hanging from those pins for ages, I reckoned. The corpse stopped moaning as the monster stopped in front of him. It seemed scared.
Time up.
Was that the monster that spoke? It sounded completely different from the corpses. Its voice was ragged and deep, almost like a guttural sound. It was a voice befitting a bloody nightmare. My mind couldn't accept what it was seeing. The monster suddenly grabbed the shriveled corpse at its chest with surprising speed and tore it off the wall without any hesitation. The arms and feet were left on the wall, still pinned. It released a loud pain scream, one I did not think it was able to make anymore. It was so loud. I quickly reached for my ear. I must have made a sound as well, because the monster stopped mid-movement and jerked its head so fast in my direction that it had to have heard something. My heart sank into my shoes as I quickly jumped further around the corner. Oh fuck, please don't notice me. Just keep doing whatever you're doing. Too late. I heard the clicking sound from its bones coming towards me. It was still holding the corpse as well, as I could hear the painful moaning from it grow stronger. Did it see me? I pressed my back against the wall and closed my eyes, trying to control my breathing. All I could do was stay calm and hope it doesn't find me. I had a feeling it wouldn't be a fight I could win. I was getting closer and closer. The stench was making it hard to keep breathing calmly. It took all I had to not move a muscle. The clicking stopped. From the corner of my eye, I could see the side of its head, intensely staring at the corpse that was pinned right next to me. I didn't notice before because of the dark, but this thing had fangs. Its teeth looked out of place, like someone took the teeth of a saber tooth and crammed it in its mouth. The teeth looked brown and rotten, but I wasn't planning on checking if it could use them. It reached out to the pins that were holding the corpse, punching them further into the wall. Where does that power come from? I couldn't even budge it. The corpse let out a small wail, but was back to silence immediately after that. The monster kept staring. It felt like an eternity. Neither of us moved, and it seemed like everything living and unliving in this place was holding its breath. Even the candles seemed like they were frozen. Please, just leave. And finally, after what felt like forever, it turned around and walked away. I closed my eyes for a second and let out the pent-up air in my lungs. Lucky. I carefully moved to the corner so I could watch what it was doing. From what I could tell, it went down the hall to the left, towards one of the windows. As I carefully looked around the corner to keep watching it, I heard a ripping sound coming from the direction of the monster. It was too dark to be able to immediately see what it was doing, but it seemed to be Chewing? It was. It was eating the corpse. It tore off the wall. It was tearing the flesh off the corpse's bones with its teeth and devouring it at an incredible rate. It ate the whole thing in mere minutes. Now I see why it walked towards the window, and where the bones came from, down in the pit. Anything that wasn't crammed down its throat, it threw out the window. There was barely anything left. I was watching the whole thing, too frozen to move. It moved back to the alcove and ripped the remaining limbs off too. It quickly munched on those before tossing the remains out of the window as well. It stared down at the pit, watching the bones fall down, before speaking again.
Peace.
The monster was long gone, into a small dark corridor I hadn't even spotted before. Apparently, this tower was a lot bigger than I thought. I was still frozen in the alcove, leaning against the wall with my back, hidden from sight. The corpse next to me was still asking for help. It felt like he was blaming me for the extra torment it was given when the monster hid his pins deeper into the wall. I couldn't do anything for him. I didn't even know if I could do anything for myself. I forced myself to take a deep cold breath. I had to start moving. Staying here is going to get me killed eventually. That I was sure of. I took one last look to make sure everything was gone, and I started moving swiftly across and further down the hall. I wanted to take a peek into the corridor it disappeared into. Maybe there was a way out, or at least, maybe I could see what was there. Not that I was all too keen to go wherever that thing went. I tried to move as fast as I could while trying to stay light on my feet to make as little noise as possible. As I was moving through the large hall, I could really appreciate the sheer size of this place. It took me at least a minute to cross it. It must be at least 40 meters wide. While moving, I noticed the intricacy of the structure. The floor tiles were very interesting. Unlike the normal, square shape I was used to, these tiles were all in weird shapes. Every one of them was unique. The patterns on the tiles were roughly carved, clearly without the aid of modern tools. In the middle of the hall across the length was a series of symbols. Perhaps they were instructions, or simply some kind of phrase left there by the creators. The symbols were the same kind I kept seeing on the walls everywhere as well, although more structured in a way. Like, the ones on the walls were more like singular things or words, and the ones on the floor more like a sentence. If I had the time and wasn't stuck in a nightmare, I would have loved to have taken things slow to study this place. I hugged the wall on the other side, making sure I moved swiftly from alcove to alcove so I had a spot to hide if necessary. I wasn't too worried though. I couldn't hear any creepy clicking sounds anymore. I arrived at the dark corridor which I saw the monster disappear into and peered around the corner. It was very dark and straight, about another 20 meters long, but I could see the other side. It was much brighter than where I was right now, and the light was very blue, like the light I saw reflecting off of the glacier where I entered this strange place. Am I still somewhere around there? That can't be. I stared a bit longer to the end of the corridor. If I went in here, there was no place to hide. There were no dark corners of passageways going anywhere. So if I spotted one of those things... There, at the end of the corridor, I saw one of those things passing by. It was only for a couple of seconds, but there definitely was one. I held my breath, staring down the light to spot if I could see anything moving again. I barely blinked. I had to make sure. Another one, walking in the same direction as the other I saw. There was no mistake. There was no way I was going to go there. That would be the last thing I do. Damn it. I could only press on, upwards. Maybe that was a way out. I turned away from the corridor, pressing my back against the wall again, and closed my eyes. I tried to spot any kind of clicking noise, to see if any of those monsters were coming this way. Nothing. Only the occasional wail of the corpses were disturbing the peace. Good. I opened my eyes, took a deep breath, and ran diagonally through the hall, back to the inner wall of the hall and towards the next flight of stairs in the back. This one was the same as the last, disappearing around the corner, upwards, although it did seem to be a bit more narrow than the other ones. The hair on my neck started to stand upright. It was the same feeling you would have if you turned off the light in the hallway before running up the stairs to your bed in case a monster was going to get you. I started picking up the pace as I aimed straight for an alcove close to the bottom of the stairs. When I arrived, I immediately dove into it and looked over my shoulder, checking if there was anything that could have spotted me. Nothing. The hall was still empty. This place was getting to me. I took a couple of deep breaths to calm down. When I opened them, I checked the hall around one more time before starting to climb the stairs up to the next floor of this hellish tower. While ascending, I kept an eye out for any other corridors here, but there were none. I kept up a fast pace while climbing. My breathing was getting heavier and the air was getting even colder. There was something up with that fact that I just couldn't understand. Why was it getting colder? I made it to the end of the staircase. There was another pillar here that gave me a safe space to scan the hall I arrived in. I leaned against it to catch my breath and checked the hall for any monsters, but it was quiet. It was a bit smaller than the other hall, but everything else was identical. There was another corridor here as well, so I decided to stick to that wall this time so I could take a look there as well. Hopefully, down that way, there aren't any of those things. It was hopeful, but I had to check at least. I stuck to the left wall, making sure to pause at every alcove to listen if I could hear anything moving about. But it was quiet. Even the corpses were silent. Maybe I agitated the ones on the previous floor. After being trapped here for ages, I could imagine there is not much point in crying out anymore. I approached the corridor, keeping my ears open for any sound coming my way. As I was hugging the wall and was about to peer around the corner, I froze. There it was again, that dreadful clicking sound coming from the darkness next to me. It was getting closer. My stomach was twisting as I moved to the closest alcove to hide, but something was wrong. This alcove was different from the ones on the other floor. There was no space next to the corpse to squeeze in. Fuck, I whispered to myself. My heart was pounding. I moved to the next alcove as fast as I could without making any noise. But to no avail, there was no space here either. Oh no. It was almost out of the corridor. I could hear it clearly now. I looked around desperately for a space to hide, but there was nothing. Absolutely nothing. My heart was beating so loud, I was afraid that thing could hear it. What do I do? I could do nothing besides pushing myself against the wall and hope it doesn't look my way. I was trying to calm myself. I was breathing too hard. Calm down. It will be fine. It won't see you. Calm down. The clicking was getting louder. The corridor was only 6 meters away from me. The small extrusion of the alcove was the only thing that was helping me hide from view, even though it was barely hiding half my face. Even louder. I expected it to exit the corridor already based on how loud the clicking was. But it wasn't. The corpses all around me started to wail, loudly, like they knew what was coming. I closed my eyes for a second. You'll be fine. It won't see you. It's not going to. Holy hell. It exited the corridor, head first. A huge claw grabbed the side of the exit, easily half my size. Then its shoulders. It barely even fit through. Then the rest of it followed. While it was emerging, it moved itself upright. The clicking was replaced by the cracking sound of it moving itself in its original form. It's a sickening sound, like you could hear bones breaking. Holy mother of everything. I nearly pissed myself. This thing must have been moving on all fours while it went through the corridor. That was the only way it could have fit. It was towering above me, easily 6 meters tall, twice as big as the other one. Insanity. At least, now I understand how they reach the upper alcoves in the halls. I was frozen to the wall, praying it wouldn't see me. I felt weak, like the sheer presence of this thing could bring me to my knees. It was overpowering. All I could do was wait and pray it was going to move away from me. The monster was just standing there for what felt like an eternity. Until finally, it moved. Its head turned to its right, down the hall. The corpses in that direction were wailing the loudest. The feeling of dread in their cries were almost enough to make me start to sob. And then, relief. It started moving away from me. It didn't spot me. But I wasn't safe yet. There was no safe space here, and I couldn't move back to the stairs either. It was too far away, and he'll probably hear me if I make a run for it. I glanced to the corridor the monster came from. That's my only chance. I slowly pushed myself off the wall, moving an inch at a time. I skipped past the alcoves, hoping they wouldn't react to me. Slowly but surely, I was approaching the corridor. The monster was walking by the wall, looking at the corpses one by one, as if checking if they're all still there. Sometimes, it would reach out to one, and the corpse would react by wailing louder, only for it to retract its arm again. Was it toying with them? The corridor was in reach. Should I go for it? I had only a few seconds to decide before that giant would reach the end of the hall and inevitably turn around. It would definitely spot me if it did. I went for it. In one smooth movement, I crept the edge of the corridor and pulled myself into it, out of view. I quickly moved down the darkness towards the other end, where the blue light was enticing me to come closer. I had to anyway. There was no other way to go. As I moved, I kept looking behind me, checking if I could see or hear it moving. But it didn't. Hopefully, I wouldn't have to see that thing ever again. As I reached the end, the light started to blind me. I couldn't see more than a few meters in front of me. The darkness from whence I came had my eyes adjusted to more unfavorable conditions. I kept my gaze towards the floor, trusting my ears to spot anything moving in front of me. As I reached the end, I looked to the sides. No monsters. The light intense, but I was getting used to it. More of the hall was becoming visible. The bluish-gray walls were replaced by light blue, close to white-colored, ice-like walls. They were reaching as high as the ones on the inside. I noticed there were no alcoves here, only large half-pillars stretching from the floor to the ceiling. There were no stairs either. It seems like this place was a dead end. There were markings on the walls here as well, but I couldn't see properly. I glanced behind me again, but there was still no movement. I took a chance and slipped out of the corridor, further into the wall. I walked with my back towards the light so I could properly look at the wall while also keeping an eye on the corridor. The walls looked very old, as usual, but unlike the ones on the inside, these were beautiful. Reaching all the way from the sides and from top to bottom, there was a giant mural depicting what seemed like someone getting stabbed in the back by someone else. It was made in a captivating and artistic manner, even though the nature of the mural was gruesome. Depicted on the floor behind the person doing the stabbing was a deformed shadow. I would have said it was the biggest painting I'd ever seen, but it wasn't exactly that. It was like the stone itself was shaped into the mural. The corridor was sticking out of the mural like a sore thumb. The floor and ceilings looked polished, as if it was carved out of a single piece of stone. The ceiling was the same, not a crack in sight. From the corner of my eye, I noticed something with the wall behind me. I turned around and moved back to the mural a bit. The wall wasn't exactly that. It was more like 3 gigantic arches reaching from the floor to the ceiling. Below the arches was about 2 meters of smooth wall, and the sides were made of gigantic round pillars. They were covered in beautifully straight carved lines. Beyond the arches was the source of the light. It looked like I was staring straight into the sun. I peeked back at the corridor, but still no monster in sight. I hoped it was still playing with its corpses. I was kind of shocked at my own thoughts, but at least that way it wouldn't come back this way and find me. I moved towards the arches. Maybe I can climb up on that wall to see what's there. I kept checking over my shoulder as I moved. Once I reached the wall, I immediately put my hands on the stone to start climbing. Damn, that's piercingly cold. I winced and rubbed my hands. The gloves weren't helping much. I'll have to do this quick. I grabbed the ledge again, lifted myself up swiftly, and stood up. I stayed close to the pillar so I wouldn't stick out as much. I noticed the pillar had a platform-like pedestal at its base, which I could stand on. I reached out to check if it was as cold as the wall I just climbed on, and I noticed that the material was warmer on the light's side. I gazed at the ball of light and what was below it. It was a sight I would never forget again. It was a gigantic cavern in ice. It was so vast I couldn't see the other end. In the middle of the grotto, there was a cage similar to the one in the tower, but several times larger. It was covered in thick chains, reinforcing it. In the middle of it was the source of light, burning brightly. I was curious as why there would be so much security to hold it, but it was a question for another time. What was below it was even more imposing. As far as the eye could see was a monstrous frozen lake, unbroken except for an immeasurable amount of small objects breaking the surface. I couldn't tell what they were, but it resembled the vegetation in a frozen river. The walls of the cavern were covered in bright blue ice, reflecting the brilliant light coming from the big yellow ball in the cage. I was baffled and only disturbed by the sound of clicking bones behind me. The magnificence of the view had distracted me to the point I completely forgot I had only just dodged a giant monster in the hall behind me, and it was now coming back to where I had fled to. A corner of this giant tower with no way out. It didn't know I went here, I thought. If my ears weren't betraying me, it sounded like it was moving at the same speed as the last time it pushed itself through the corridor that was clearly too small for it. Still, I only had a minute to think of something. I looked down the massive tower to estimate how high up I was. But I already knew that wasn't an option. I had a feeling the ice wouldn't exactly make for a soft landing. Climbing up these pillars without any climbing gear was going to be impossible too. There was nothing on them I could use to climb. To my left and right was a dead end as well. I fled right into a death trap. I could try to push myself against the wall again, but that brilliant light outside the tower would make it very easy for that thing to see me. No, that was too risky. There was only one option left. On the foot of the pillar next to me was a small ledge on the outside of the tower where I could stand. It was minimal, but if I didn't move too much, I should be able to hide behind it. I grabbed the pillar and carefully set my foot on the ledge. I had to move very slowly, or I would slip and plummet to my death. The creaking was already very near. I could already see its outline in the corridor, creeping ever closer. Just focus. It shouldn't be able to see you behind the pillar, even though this brown coat was making me stand out like red wine on a white carpet. It was here. I observed it pushing its massive body out of the small corridor and reconstructing itself when it birthed itself fully. In the light, I was even more horrified at what I was seeing. I was spot on with my earlier observation that it looked and smelled like it was decomposing. Because it was. Its flesh was grey and rotting off the bones. There was something keeping it from falling apart, but it wasn't anything natural. I saw something strange with its head that I hadn't seen before. The eye sockets weren't completely empty. There was a small red flame flickering deep inside them, one you could only see if you were looking straight into them. The head itself was wrinkly and stretched vertically, like it was perpetually screaming. Its mouth was filled to the brim with crooked, razor-sharp teeth. In between them were remainders of the corpses in the hall. It must have grabbed some of them just now. It made me shudder at the thought how easily it could tear me apart. It hadn't spotted me. When it was upright, it proceeded straight ahead and stopped near the middle arch. I moved myself further around the pillar, staying directly behind it as the monster was drawing closer. I had to trust my ears. I wouldn't dare to peek around now. Its claws grabbed the pillars beside it with a surprising speed, fast enough that I had only a second to duck. My heart stopped. Its claw was only inches above my head. I wasn't moving a muscle, standing in an awkward, half-ducked pose. My eyes were spread wide open, my heart beating 1,000,000 times per second. Stay calm and wait for it to move. It didn't see you. Just breathe. That was a mistake. I completely forgot about the pungent, rotting smell that was coming off these things. I gagged as a reflex before grabbing my mouth to shield myself from the smell. But it was too late. It must have heard something, because the claw let go of the pillar and moved to the ledge next to me. I could hear the body moving around the pillar to where I was standing. I had no choice but to move back on the small ledge on the outside. Oh God. I was now fully on the ledge, holding my arms to the side so it wouldn't see them. I couldn't hold myself to the pillar either, so if I lose my balance now, I'm dead. The monster was moving back and forth on the other side, probably checking where the sound it heard came from. It didn't find me. They might be huge and dangerous, but I don't think they're very smart. Lucky. It felt like ages for it to calm down and accept there was nothing here. My heels were cramping from balancing me for so long. I need to move soon. The monster moved away towards the other end of the hall. I shifted myself around the pillar again, onto solid ground while watching it. I had to get back into that corridor without it noticing, but if I jump off here, it will definitely hear me, and I have no idea if that thing can run or not. If it can't, I might make it. I decided to wait until it was at least at the far end, and then swiftly and quietly lowered myself from the 2-meter high ledge. It took some effort, especially because my eyes were glued to that thing, so I was moving by touch. It was staring at the mural while walking, so I was just out of its view. I was standing fully on the ground now, still looking at it. It was still staring at the mural. Should I just run for it? It turned its body back around towards me, its head lagging behind. I was frozen. Fuck. Before I knew it, I was staring at the red flames in its hollow eyes. I could almost see it thinking. It tilted its head like it couldn't quite understand what it was looking at. As I came back to my senses, my fight or flight response was waking up as well. It didn't have to choose though. Before I can even think about it, my legs were sprinting towards the corridor. Almost at the same time, the monster was realizing that I shouldn't be there and started to move. Fast. Way faster than I anticipated. The corridor was in reach. I sprinted the distance in record time, but it still seemed like it would reach me faster. Run! It was reaching its left claw towards me, trying to intercept me. I ran into the corridor, the claw barely missing me. I heard the monster collapsing behind me with a loud bang. It was moving so fast to catch me, it lost its balance and crashed. I didn't stop running. I had to go somewhere to hide. If I took it easy now, it would probably catch up in no time. I glanced behind me to see what was happening. To my horror, it was already pushing itself into the corridor I was in. Oh hell. I focused ahead of me. Just run! I heard it squeezing and clawing itself through. As I exited into the hall, I weighed my options, only to realize I only had one: to keep running and hope I can find some place to hide. I ran to the stairs and started to climb. As I glanced behind me, I saw it aggressively emerging from the corridor while looking around, trying to find me. It only took about a second for it to focus its gaze on me. The monster started to wiggle itself out even more aggressively until it finally popped out. I was already halfway up the stairs and started to lose sight of it. But I was certain it wasn't going to give up. I could already hear it running towards me. I was completely out of breath, my chest burning and stinging from the intense exercise and cold. But I had to keep going. The top of the stairs were in sight. The stumps of heavy feet were getting closer. I looked back to see how close it was. Way closer than I expected. The only reason it hadn't caught up to me yet was because its large body wasn't built for these steps. It kept slipping on the small steps. It was horrifying to see this monster frantically screeching and clawing its way up, desperately trying to catch me. I had to run faster, or I wasn't going to make it. The end was within reach. Please, let there be something I can do there. It was mere meters behind me now. I could feel the wind of its grasps hitting my back as it kept missing by mere inches. I ran as fast as I had ever done, and as I hit the next floor, I kept running. I could hear that thing screeching even louder.
Stop!
It sounded farther away than before. As I glanced behind me, I noticed it froze at the top of the stairs. I stopped running, looking at it confused. It had me. Why did it stop? It just stood there, gazing and screeching at me, but not budging an inch. It can't get up here? Its eyes were burning brightly at me, almost like it was furious and fearful at the same time. But it wasn't taking its eyes off of me. I fell to my knees, completely out of breath. I felt like my heart could burst. I hadn't noticed before, but I reached the top floor. Apparently the stairs I just ran up was quite a bit longer than the other ones. The hall I was in was different. The floor was way more blue than the others, and the walls were smooth, like the area I fled to when I was running from the giant. To my left, on the outer wall, there was a giant mural, spanning its entirety just like the other one. There were torches everywhere, making sure the mural was properly visible even in the darkness around here. In the middle of the mural, there was another corridor, albeit this one was about twice as big as the last one. A sinister red light was shining somewhere in there. The ceiling was covered in ice and icicles, giving this area an eerie blue glow. To the far end was a dead end. No more stairs. "Whoa there, fellow. You got lucky there. He almost had you," a person called. A person? To my right was the reinforced cage I saw from the bottom. There was a person in it, smiling at me. The person was a bearded man with short curly hair, wearing long reddish-colored robes. He was sitting in the corner, leaning against the iron. The cage itself was bigger than I expected, about 6 meters in diameter and about 8 high. The material of the cage looked like a bluish iron. I noticed the floor here protrudes a bit towards the cage, like a walkway. The cage was several meters away from the edge though. I stood back up and walked towards him, still very much out of breath. I asked him, "Are you real?" I kept an eye on the monster, still standing there, watching my every move. He laughed at me, looked at the giant, and back at me. "Why yes, young man. Find your way back up here safely?" I could hear some sarcasm in his voice. He was probably aware of what was lurking about in this tower. "You knew I was here?" I asked him. I had pretty much regained my breath now. "Well yes, you fell from up here. I saw the flags break your fall though. You must be one lucky fellow, my friend." His eyes were flaring up, scanning me up and down with unbridling enthusiasm, like he hadn't seen a human before. I was still very confused about the whole thing. Why is he the only person alive in this place? And why is he so damn relaxed? "Sorry, but who the hell are you?" I asked him while squinting my eyes. The monster behind me started screeching loudly and stomping its feet upon me asking that question. He looked like he wanted me to stop talking to him, but was unable to reach me. "Oh, shut up, demon. Can I not even tell this man my name anymore? It's not like I can get out of here anyway." He sneered at the giant. He looked awkwardly comfortable with the situation. He placed his hand on his chest and did a small bow. "Forgive me for not introducing myself any sooner. My manners are rusty, shall we say," he said with confidence. "Nice to meet you, young man. My name is Judas Iscariot. And what, if I may ask, is yours?" The Judas Iscariot? I was completely dumbfounded. Was this man in front of me really the man from the scriptures? My mind could not accept this as the truth. He had to be lying. But why would he? He looked up from his bow with a surprised expression. "Oh, am I known where you come from?" A smile crept across his face. Then again, the other fellow mentioned this as well. He was about as startled as you. I believe he said something about a book I was mentioned in. Judas frowned his face, as if trying to remember something from ages long ago. He was plucking at his beard. Someone else was here? Was that recently? I felt hopeful. If anyone made it here like I did, maybe that person found a way out. Well, yes and no. In fact, I had almost forgotten about that poor man. Seemed so long ago that he passed my humble prison. Please, could you stay a bit longer? It gets so dreadfully lonely in here. Judas was smiling, but his eyes betrayed him. He was despairing. Curiosity got the better of me. How long have you been here? And how are you alive? All the others I found were... well, there wasn't much left. I glanced at the giant at the stairs. It was still keeping vigilant to my every movement. Judas was visibly excited the conversation could keep going. "Ah, well, that is a very good question, my friend. But first, could you tell me how you managed to get here? It's awfully well fortified, you know." He chuckled while pointing to the giant. I was annoyed he countered with another question, but I needed answers, so I just went with it. "We found a giant door in the ice. It was the first one we found that wasn't broken. I had been in contact with a few of them before, but none of them ever actually did something. This one, however, grabbed me and pulled me in. I woke up in that pit of bones down there, but I have no recollection of how I got down there, or even where I fell from. Judas nodded at me. A door, you say? How intriguing. He squinted his eyes and looked like he was trying to remember something. So you came from the world of the living then? I was just about to repeat my question, but those last words stopped me. Wait, world of the living? What do you mean by that? Huh, you have no idea where you are, do you? He replied amused. I shook my head. Why, you are in hell, my dear boy, and the lowest level at that. Hell? Excuse me? This had to be a joke. There was no way there is a door in some random glacier to hell on Earth. That would be ridiculous. That is correct. You have heard of it, yes? It's the place all humans go when their sins outweigh their virtues in life. It's a dreadful place. I speak from experience. I was feeling more and more like I couldn't breathe. All this new information was too much. Not only was my view of the world completely overturned, but there was also a very good chance I wasn't going to get out of here either. After all, I got thrown into the worst prison in existence. But to get back to your question, Judah seemed unfazed by my shock and continued the conversation. I'm not sure how long I've been here, but it must have been, what shall we say, about 20,000 years? Yes, that seems about right. 20,000? Is time frozen here or something? Well, it's very hard to keep track here, of course, so I might be off by 100 years or so. There isn't much to do here besides think. But no, time is not frozen. Let me explain. He sat down and made himself comfortable. What you are looking at is not the whole me. You're only looking at my soul. And souls don't age, my friend. My body has perished long ago in the world of the living. Only souls can pass into this place. What are you talking about? I'm here, I replied. My face must have shown my realization. Exactly. You are not here. Only your soul is. Or did you think you could have fallen that far without dying? Take a look at your shoulder. He pointed at the improvised bandage. I hadn't realized with all the running and hiding, but my shoulder didn't hurt anymore. I took off the bandage to look at the wound. But it was gone. Not even scar tissue. Souls are robust, Judas continued. They heal swiftly, and, as you must have seen on your way up, never really die. Well, besides when those creatures get their claws on you. He pointed at the giant monster. When your sentence here is up, they eat you. That's how it works. When they do, your soul is simply released. I don't know the details. While he was talking, I calmed down. The explanation answered about half a dozen questions I had about this place. I felt hopeful again. And do you know of a way out of here? Well, there might be a way out, but I only heard of it from that other fellow. What was his name? He was trying really hard to remember. My heart jumped. A way out? Ah, Dante. That was it. He pointed a finger upwards from his crossed arms. He was here some time ago. He came from the upper layers, trying to find someone, if I recall correctly. He entered this realm from the very top, so that might be your way out. Dante came from a door that a ways. He pointed down the reddish corridor, where you came from as well. I looked back at Judas. I came from that corridor? Then, how did I end up down there? Well, that was the warden's doing. He came this way yesterday, dragging you behind, and threw you down there. He really dislikes clutter. Judas rolled his eyes, as if talking about a nagging old woman. The warden? Who is that? Judas's smile disappeared. He is the one supervising this place. This layer at least. He's not really the chatty type, but he comes by once a day. To torture me. Every day for thousands of years? It is a wonder he still had his sanity. Or at least, part of it. Listen. His voice turned solemn. It was like a clear moment in an Alzheimer's patient. Although I appreciate the visit, it is not safe for you. I'm assuming you have not died in the world of the living. I don't believe so. I just got dragged into the door. That's all I know. Alright, I think you can still go back to it then, as long as it is intact. But you must hurry. This place does not like wayward souls, and those things will keep hunting you as long as you're here. He pointed at the giant again. Dante told me one more thing. I cannot be certain as to why he thought I needed this information. I think he felt pity for me. Judas grinned, in a sad way. Listen, this is important. Long ago, Lucifer rebelled against God. He fought a war against him and was eventually beaten and imprisoned here. However, Lucifer is devious. He had prepared beforehand. He built a couple of doorways, back doors, to different places, so he'd have a way to move around probably. When God found out after the rebellion, he destroyed all he could find. That is why the doors you found were only remnants. But I think you might have found one in the ice that God himself missed. A working back door, and it pulled you right into this realm. The whole time he was talking, I don't think I blinked even once. I was enthralled by his story and how absurd it even sounded. I felt like it could actually be true. Judas continued. But it seems you came in through the door that normally only goes to the next layer. So that part is what's strange. It is the same way where Dante came from when he visited me. So I don't know how, but it seems like the portal can go to different places. You'll have to figure out how by yourself. My mind was racing. The door's destination can be changed? But how? Maybe there is a console on this side? I was distracted by all the questions in my head that I didn't hear someone closer behind me. Not until Judas alerted me. Our time is up. The warden is coming. I looked behind me. A monster similar to the others was walking this way, although it seemed much more like a human than the others and was only a little taller than myself. It was wearing ragged clothes and holding a knapsack over its shoulder, while in the other hand a ring of keys. It was staring at me, but wasn't really responding to my presence. In this place filled with monsters, he almost seemed like someone or something you could reason with, until I started to feel the murderous air coming off of him. It felt like if I got too close, he wouldn't even need a second to kill me. The giant responded to the warden as well. It started to withdraw, moving into a more submissive position. Was it scared of him? Judas whispered to me, just loud enough for me to hear. Listen, he won't harm you. As long as you're not in his way, he doesn't care. The only job he has is to torture me. But if you want to find out how the door works, you might have to go to the builder. There is only one way you can go from here. That will lead you to him. I doubt he will tell you, but I don't think you have a choice here. But seriously, move around him with a big arch, or you will die right here and now. Go. His voice was stern and fearful. My time here was up. I had to go. I turned around and started walking around the warden with my back towards the wall. The warden's eyes did not let go of me until I was behind him. As crushing as the presence of the giant was, the warden's was worse. I felt I shouldn't do anything to tick him off, or I would regret it immediately. Once I knew his attention was back to Judas, I went for the corridor. The warden grabbed one of the keys and started opening the cage Judas was in. Judas stared at me, ignoring the warden until I was out of view. It pained me to leave him, but there was nothing I could do. I kept walking, not looking back, even when I started to hear his screams coming from behind me. The red light in the dark corridor was getting brighter. A familiar feeling was washing over me as I drew closer to the end. When I emerged, I knew what was giving me this feeling. In front of me was an almost identical door as the one I entered in the glacier. It was more scarlet than the other one, and the swirling faces were as vivid as they were last time. The door was standing in the middle of a large, square room with markings all over. They seemed to center around it, especially the ones on the floor and ceiling. No console in sight though. So this is where I originally surfaced. If what Judas said was correct, this door should take me to the next layer and closer to the way out. If the other layers are as bad as this one, the chances of me making it to the end were very slim. I scanned the rest of the area. To the left of the room was a normal, large door made of a dark wood-like material. To my right was another arch with what seemed like another passageway behind it. I decided to see what was behind the wooden door. Maybe there was information about how I could switch the destination in there. The door was about as heavy as I expected, but I managed to open it far enough for me to slip through. This must be where the warden usually resides. The walls were adorned with weapons and all kind of torture devices. Most of them I had never seen before. In the middle of the room was a stone slab, large enough for a human to lie on, I'm assuming. There wasn't much else here. No books, papers, or any kind of information I could use. I decided to just leave here. I didn't want the warden to find me snooping around. As I closed the door on my way out again, I realized I had only one choice to make. I had to go talk to the builder of the doorways. I shuddered at the thought. I had to go see Lucifer, the devil himself, and ask him for help. There was only one route left for me to take. The corridor straight ahead. I had to go ask him for help. I doubt someone like the devil would just help me out of the goodness of his heart, but I had to try. As I walked down the dark corridor, I noticed the stone of the tower was being replaced by ice the further I progressed. It was getting brighter as well. The light was reflecting off the ice, giving it a beautiful light blue tint. Progressing even further, the stone was fully gone. All that was left was a perfectly hewn out passageway of ice. I was glad I was wearing snow boots. If I had worn normal shoes, I would have slipped. Up ahead, the light was getting more intense. Seems like the corridor was opening to a larger area. As I arrived at the exit, I realized where I was. This was the cavern I saw earlier. From the tower, down below was the frozen lake with small dark twigs sticking out. I was a lot closer now and could see what those twigs actually were. Bony arms reaching upwards. The lake was filled with people trapped in the ice. I imagined it would be the same as the ones spiked on the walls inside the tower. Alive, but barely. I could not see it from the tower because of the bright light, but there was a broad walkway along the wall towards what seems like a half bridge of ice in the distance. It seems to reach towards the cage. I frowned. Was there another route I could have taken? Surely he could not be in there. I did not spot any other way I could go, so I decided to just go check. The light pricked my eyes, so I kept my gaze downwards and over the edge towards the lake of ice. As I was walking, I noticed several of those smaller monsters walking around on the ice. Thankfully, I was high enough they probably would not notice me. In the distance, I could see the tower I came from. To my surprise, I saw one of those things climb the wall and disappear into the darkness of the tower. Seems like they can scale walls much easier than I thought. I decided to walk a little closer to the wall, just to be sure. By the time I reached the foot of the bridge, the light was so fierce I couldn't keep my eyes open anymore. I contemplated just yelling from here, but the cage was still too far away. I would not be able to see where I was going if I just kept walking though, and there wasn't anything to hold on to. So I decided to crawl over the bridge on my hands and feet. That way, I would be able to feel the edge if I were getting too close to it. From what I saw before, the bridge was quite long, so I had to be careful. The cage was also giving off a fair amount of heat. It was the first time since arriving that I did not feel like I was freezing. It was almost comfortable. After crawling along the bridge for a while, I called out, "Hello?" No response. I kept going, nervously feeling for the end of the bridge. I must have almost reached it. "Hello? Anyone there?" Maybe it was just a ball of light after all, and I missed the turn. It is hard to imagine someone could be in there. I caught myself hoping there was nothing there for a second. I think I had not quite accepted that I was searching for the devil himself. I mean, the devil. No one in their right mind would just casually walk up to such a person and ask them for help. The only source of information I had was Judas, and that was not quite the most dependable source. I shook my head. No, he had to be here. It was my only hope of getting out of here in one piece. I stubbornly kept crawling towards the cage. I was not backing off now. The bridge was flattening out. It felt like I arrived at the end. The light had gotten so strong now that I sat up on my knees and buried my face in my arm to try and block it. If he was there, he had to hear me now. "If you can hear me, please respond. I'm looking for Lucifer." Almost instantaneously after I said that the entire cave started trembling violently as a voice thundered into my ears, nearly rupturing my eardrums.
Do not speak my name that freely, vermin.
That volume was absurd. My free hand grabbed my ear out of response. It felt like my head split. I backed up a bit in case he would yell like that again. The feelings of dread and hope were washing over me at the same time. The devil is right in front of me. I took a deep, trembling breath before speaking again. "My apologies. I did not mean any offense. I came to ask for help." I tried to speak humbly to not anger him again.
Leave.
His voice was dimmer than before, but the cavern still shook to its core. I felt like he was speaking calmly, but still loud as hell. Maybe an archangel does not even have a normal volume. I could hear the monsters screeching down below. I think they were responding to him. I know he told me to leave, but I could not before asking him about the door. "I will leave immediately, but I just need to know if you're the one that built the doors. I used one to get here by accident."
You did what?
My head felt like it split again. I pressed my head against the ice, holding both hands against my ears. I could hear the cage rattling. I wanted to respond, but I was too shocked to get any words out, until he spoke again.
Mortal, what door do you speak of?
He sounded like he calmed down. I took my hands off my head and tried to open my eyes, but to no avail. The light had not dimmed. We located many doors, but they were all broken, except for one. It was hidden deep in the ice. The glacier had started melting. That was how we found it. I heard you put it there?
I have created many things, tore down even more. What of it?
I still could not believe I was having a conversation with Satan himself. I would have thought I was dreaming, but even my dreams were never this creative. "There's a door somewhere back there." I pointed in the direction I came from. "Judas told me there is a way to use it to get back to where I came from, to make the door switch its destination to outside instead of to the next floor in this place. Can you tell me how to do that?" I felt arrogant just asking that, like an ant asking God himself for a favor. It was quiet for a while, until I could have sworn I heard a slight chuckle coming from the cage.
Very well, I will tell you.
I was surprised. He was really going to tell me how to get out of here?
There is a price.
I should have expected things not to go this easy. Please, anything. I just want to go back.
You can choose to get out the normal way. Follow the layers up. I doubt you will survive that.
This time I was sure I heard a chuckle.
But there is another way, the one you heard of. It will only work if you have a body to go back to.
There was a slight pause, as if he was carefully weighing his words.
If you willingly offer a piece of your soul to the door, it will expel you back where you came from.
Offer a piece of my soul willingly? How? I asked.
Figure it out.
His voice went back to full volume. The cave shook violently. I felt like I was about to fall off the bridge. For a moment, the light swelled, before coming down again. It was clear he was done talking to me. I was only able to let out a meek "Thank you," before turning around. I crawled back to the walkway. As I reached the end of the bridge, I carefully stood up again, using the wall to ground myself. As I walked back, I was contemplating what just happened. It still felt like it wasn't real. When I arrived back at the door, I looked up at it and started to ponder. Offer a piece of my soul willingly. I looked down at my arm. If he meant literally. Judas did say we're all souls here. So, if I would. I shuddered. As I was standing there, I heard movement in the warden's chamber. The door was open. I paused a bit longer to think it over, but I was sure that was what he meant. I did not see an alternative, at least. I took a deep breath and started walking towards the open door. As I came closer, I saw the warden standing near the stone slab. He was cleaning some tools with a ragged, dirty cloth. It took a second, but then I remembered. Oh. I waited in the door for him to acknowledge me, but to no avail. I glanced at the weapons on the wall. Can I just get one? I decided to just ask for it. Judas did say he didn't care about me at all, so he should not be hostile towards me. I need to use a blade. The warden looked up at me, stopping mid-movement. He stared at me for a good couple of seconds, before putting the tools down and walking towards the left wall. He grabbed a large blade, looked at it for a second, and put it down on the slab in front of me. He then proceeded to continue cleaning his tools without taking his eyes off me. I could swear I saw some amusement in them. I hesitantly moved closer to the slab and reached for the blade on the slab. My entire body was screaming for danger as I came closer to the warden, telling me to run. But nothing happened. He was still just staring me down, watching me pick up the blade. It was like he knew what I was about to do. I hesitated again, but the warden wasn't the patient type. He suddenly said 2 words to me in a deep, commanding tone. Do it. Those words gave me the small push and fuck it attitude I needed. I laid down my arm on the slab, lifted the blade as high as I could reach, and slammed it down with all the force I had in me. It went through like my arm was made of clay. I did not feel anything, until about 5 seconds later when my brain finally received the signal. I fell to my knees, grasping at my arm, wincing in pain. I grabbed the cloth I had on my shoulder and wrapped it around the open wound. The warden chuckled, grabbed the blade I just used, and started to clean it with the same filthy piece of fabric he was using before. His eyes finally let go of me and looked back down at his work. There was only one more commanding word coming from him before going back to ignoring my existence. Leave. I grabbed my severed arm and stumbled towards the chamber, still dizzy from the pain. It is done. Now move. You're almost there. As I stood in front of the door, panting, I could not help but feel like I made it. Finally, I can leave this place. I didn't see anything to put my arm in, so I just held it up and slowly poked the flowing membrane with it. That seemed to work. The membrane enveloped the arm and pulled on it, so I let go. I saw it slowly disappearing into nothingness. For a second afterwards, nothing happened. The membrane went back to normal, and it seemed like it didn't work. But then, the membrane lit up. The nasty color from before was replaced by a bright white light, strong enough to blind me. It only took a few seconds, but the membrane reached out to me again and started to grab me. When it fully enveloped me, it suddenly pulled me through, and I was knocked out again. Voices, beeping in the background, warmth. Those were the first sensations I felt. As I opened my eyes, I was disoriented. My body felt heavy, tired. I looked around. White walls, monitors, a person next to me holding my hand. It was Rose. She had a smile on her face from ear to ear, and her eyes were watering. She mouthed something, but all I could hear was a ringing. I was in a hospital. I slowly reached for my chest. It felt like there was a hole, but there was not. My arm was there as well, even though everything that happened. Was it all a dream? No, it was not. Deep inside of me, I knew it was real. Rose moved her hand on my face. The warmth pulled me back to the moment. Her touch made me feel safe. I sighed in relief before closing my eyes and falling back to sleep. I am home. back where I came from, high above the frozen lake. The ball of light became restless. The cage started swinging, and the cave started trembling. The cavern shook as he said these final words.
Good, mortal. The way is open. I am coming.